Do you remember the unforgettable drivers of the Sunshine Cab Company? They made millions laugh on screen, however, real life told a far different story. Addiction destroyed one life, another comedy legend died far too young, and heartbreaking illness slowly claimed many of television's most beloved stars. This is what the cast looked like in 2026. Danny DeVito played Louis De Palma, the loud, manipulative dispatcher whose insults and outrageous behavior made him impossible to ignore in Taxi when he was only 33 years old. His audition has since become the stuff of Hollywood legend. The moment DeVito walked into the casting room, he threw the script onto the table and barked, "Who wrote this piece of garbage?" The producers were stunned, until they realized he had already become Louis before the audition had even begun. That fearless gamble won him the role on the spot, leading to an Emmy, a Golden Globe, and a career filled with unforgettable performances in Batman Returns, Matilda, Get Shorty, Romancing the Stone, and later It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Behind the laughter, however, DeVito overcame lifelong challenges caused by multiple epiphyseal dysplasia, a rare genetic bone disorder that left him standing just 4 feet 10 inches tall and often limited the opportunities available to him early in his career. In 2026, at 81 years old, Danny DeVito is still acting while starring as Frank Reynolds on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. More than 4 decades after Taxi, his unmistakable voice, fearless comedy, and larger-than-life personality continue to make him one of Hollywood's most beloved entertainers. Jeff Conaway was just 27 when he joined Taxi in 1978, as Bobby Wheeler, the handsome, aspiring actor who drove a cab while dreaming of making it big in Hollywood. Ironically, Conaway's own life was beginning to fall apart behind the scenes. At first, everything seemed to be going his way. Fresh off the worldwide success of Grease, where he became famous as Kenickie, Conaway earned 2 Golden Globe nominations for Taxi. But years of chronic back pain caused by an injury during Grease led him into a devastating addiction to prescription painkillers, which eventually spiraled into alcohol and cocaine abuse. As his condition worsened, he frequently arrived late, forgot his lines, and sometimes collapsed on set. His role was gradually reduced, and by the end of season 3, he had left the series amid persistent reports of serious backstage conflicts and growing frustration from the production team. In later years, Conaway publicly fought his addictions on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew, but the struggle never truly ended. On May 27, 2011, Jeff Conaway died at the age of 60 after spending weeks in a coma following an overdose that was complicated by severe pneumonia and sepsis. His family ultimately made the heartbreaking decision to remove life support. Though his life ended in tragedy, fans continued to remember him as both Bobby Wheeler and the unforgettable Kenickie, 2 roles that secured his place in television and film history. In 1978, at just 26 years old, Marilu Henner portrayed as Elaine Nardo, the quick-witted single mother who balanced a job at an art gallery by day and drove a cab by night to support her child. As the only woman in the main cast, Elaine brought both warmth and strength to the garage's chaotic world. Behind the scenes, life proved just as eventful. Only 3 weeks after filming began, Henner and co-star Tony Danza fell in love and began dating, creating one of the show's earliest off-screen romances. Although the relationship eventually ended, the two remained close friends for decades. Henner later received 5 consecutive Golden Globe nominations for her performance and went on to star alongside Burt Reynolds in Evening Shade while hosting her own talk show. But perhaps the most extraordinary thing about her isn't her acting career, it's her brain. Henner is one of the few people in the world diagnosed with highly superior autobiographical memory, HSAM, allowing her to recall the smallest details of virtually every day of her life. That remarkable gift became especially painful in 2023, when 2 of her former husbands, Frederick Forrest and Robert Lieberman, died just 8 days apart, a heartbreaking double loss that left her emotionally devastated. Today, Marilu Henner is 74 years old and still appears on television while speaking publicly about memory, health, and wellness. She is happily married to her third husband, Michael Brown, a former college classmate whom she reunited with decades later, bringing an unexpected happy ending to one of Hollywood's most unusual life stories. Judd Hirsch was 43 years old when he accepted the role of Alex Riger in Taxi in 1978, playing the weary but compassionate cab driver who quietly became the moral center of the Sunshine Cab Garage. It was the role that would forever define his television career, even though he almost walked away from it before filming began. At the time, Hirsch had no interest in committing to a television series. A devoted Broadway actor, he feared that years on a sitcom would trap him professionally. Producer James L. Brooks spent weeks trying to change his mind, but Hirsch refused to budge. Finally, he made what he believed was an impossible demand. If he joined the show, his name had to appear first in the opening credits. Instead of rejecting him, the producers immediately agreed. That unexpected decision changed everything. Hirsch went on to win 2 Emmy Awards for Taxi, later earned 2 Oscar nominations for Ordinary People, 1980, and The Fabelmans, 2022, and built an acclaimed career with films like Independence Day, 1996, and the hit series Numb 3Rs. By 2026, Judd Hirsch is 91 years old and continues to make occasional film and television appearances. Decades after Taxi, he remains one of the most respected character actors of his generation, admired for choosing longevity and artistic integrity over celebrity. In Taxi, at 34 years old, Vincent Schiavelli was cast as Reverend H. L. Gorky, the eccentric minister who officiated the unforgettable wedding of Latka and Simca. Towering at 6 feet 6 inches with one of Hollywood's most distinctive faces, he needed only a few scenes to leave a lasting impression. Schiavelli built an extraordinary career by embracing the very appearance that once made him feel like an outsider. His unmistakable look led to memorable performances in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus, Ghost, Tomorrow Never Dies, and dozens of other films. Behind that unique appearance, however, was a lifelong battle with Marfan syndrome, a rare genetic disorder that affected his connective tissue, eyesight, skeletal structure, and cardiovascular health. Rather than hiding from the condition, Schiavelli turned it into one of the most recognizable screen presences of his generation, even as it brought years of physical hardship. On December 26, 2005, Vincent Schiavelli died at his home in Sicily, Italy, after battling lung cancer. He was 57 years old. Though his career was filled mostly with supporting roles, his unforgettable performances proved that no actor needed to be the leading man to become impossible to forget. Tony Danza made his acting debut in Taxi as Tony Banta, the kind-hearted boxer who drove a cab while chasing his dream of becoming a professional fighter when he was only 27. The remarkable twist was that Tony wasn't really playing a boxer. He actually was one. His path to Hollywood sounds almost too unbelievable to be true. Danza had never studied acting and was training as a semi-professional boxer in a New York gym when producer James L. Brooks noticed his charisma and invited him to audition. Rather than forcing him into a character, the writers reshaped Tony Banta around Danza's real personality and boxing background. The gamble paid off spectacularly, launching a career that later included Who's the Boss?, Angels in the Outfield, and multiple Emmy and Golden Globe nominations. Off-screen, however, success came with painful setbacks. 2 marriages ended in expensive divorces, and in 1993 he narrowly survived a devastating skiing accident that left him with severe spinal injuries and a long, uncertain recovery. Then, at the height of his fame, he stunned Hollywood by stepping away from acting in 2010 to teach 10th grade English at a public high school in Philadelphia, simply because he wanted to experience life from a different perspective. In 2026, Tony Danza is 75 years old and continues to perform on Broadway, tour as a singer, and make occasional television appearances. With an estimated net worth of around $40 million, he remains one of the rare stars whose most surprising role may have been the one he played after becoming famous. Christopher Lloyd was 40 years old when he first appeared in Taxi in 1979 as Reverend Jim Ignatowski, the absent-minded former hippie whose permanently dazed expression and bizarre logic stole every scene he entered. He was only supposed to appear in a single episode, but audiences loved him so much that the producers immediately promoted him to the main cast. That unexpected promotion launched one of television's greatest comedy careers. Lloyd's unforgettable performance earned him 2 Emmy Awards, and his legendary slow down driver's license test remains one of the funniest moments in sitcom history. The success of Taxi opened the door to some of cinema's most iconic roles, including Doc Brown in the Back to the Future trilogy, Judge Doom in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Uncle Fester in The Addams Family. Yet while his career flourished, his personal life was far less stable. Lloyd went through 4 failed marriages before finally finding lasting happiness with his 5th wife, Lisa Loiacono, whom he married in 2016 after years of disappointment and emotional upheaval. As of 2026, at 87 years old, Christopher Lloyd continues to delight fans through film appearances, conventions, and reunions celebrating his remarkable career. More than 4 decades after Taxi, he remains one of the most beloved character actors in Hollywood history. Andy Kaufman played Latka Gravas, the lovable immigrant mechanic whose innocent charm made him one of the series' most unforgettable characters when he was 29 years old. Behind Latka's gentle smile, however, was one of the most unpredictable minds Hollywood had ever seen. Kaufman never considered himself a comedian. He saw himself as a performance artist whose real goal was to blur the line between reality and fiction. While filming Taxi, he insisted that his outrageous alter ego, Tony Clifton, receive a separate contract. Then came the stunt that stunned Hollywood. Tony Clifton arrived on set with 2 women rumored to be prostitutes, insulted the cast, screamed at the crew, and became so disruptive that security physically dragged him off the lot in front of reporters. The chaos made headlines across America, only for many to later realize it had all been part of Kaufman's elaborate performance. His career also included the legendary Saturday Night Live Mighty Mouse routine, 2 Golden Globe nominations for Taxi, and later inspired the acclaimed film Man on the Moon starring Jim Carrey. In January 1984, Kaufman was diagnosed with large cell lung cancer despite living a remarkably healthy lifestyle, avoiding alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. He died on May 16, 1984, in Los Angeles at just 35 years old. Because he had spent years fooling audiences with elaborate hoaxes, many fans refused to believe he was really gone, convinced his death was simply his greatest performance. Only years later did the heartbreaking truth finally sink in, cementing Andy Kaufman's legacy as one of the most brilliant and mysterious performers in entertainment history. Randall Carver was 32 years old when he portrayed John Burns, the soft-spoken former serviceman whose honest nature made him one of the garage's friendliest drivers in Taxi in 1978. Unfortunately, his time behind the wheel would be far shorter than anyone expected. Behind the scenes, John Burns became one of the show's earliest casualties. After the first season, producers concluded that the character lacked the comic spark they were looking for and had become too similar to Tony Bonta, played by Tony Danza. Without any dramatic farewell or even an on-screen explanation, Burns simply disappeared from the series, leaving Carver unexpectedly out of one of television's biggest hits. The setback made it difficult for him to regain momentum in Hollywood, and he spent the following decades taking mostly supporting roles, including appearances in There Will Be Blood, Detroit 187, and numerous television guest spots. Unlike many actors, Carver chose a quiet life away from Hollywood drama, sharing a long and stable marriage with writer and television host Shelley Hayden. By 2026, Randall Carver is 79 years old and continues to be remembered by longtime Taxi fans as one of the original members of the Sunshine Cab family. Although his time on the series was brief, his story remains one of television's most memorable examples of how quickly Hollywood can change a career. In Taxi, Carol Kane played Simca Dahlblitz Gravas, the delightfully eccentric girlfriend and later wife of Latka Gravas when she was 28 years old. Although she arrived in the third season, Simca quickly became one of the show's most unforgettable characters thanks to her wonderfully odd chemistry with Andy Kaufman. Their partnership was unlike anything television audiences had seen before. Speaking a completely invented language and embracing the couple's wonderfully bizarre relationship, Kane and Kaufman created comedy that felt both absurd and strangely heartfelt. Her performance earned her 2 Emmy Awards, adding to the acclaim she had already received from an Academy Award nomination for Hester Street, 1975. She later built an extraordinary career with memorable roles in The Princess Bride, Scrooged, Addams Family Values, and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Despite often being typecast because of her distinctive voice and unconventional appearance, Kane repeatedly turned those qualities into her greatest strengths. Off-screen, she has remained one of Hollywood's most private actresses, never marrying and avoiding the scandals that so often surrounded the entertainment industry. Now, at 73 years old, Carol Kane continues to work steadily in film and television. More than 4 decades after Taxi, she remains admired for proving that originality, not convention, can build one of the most enduring careers in Hollywood. T.J. Castronovo was 40 years old when he appeared in Taxi in 1979 as Tommy Jeffries, the calm, dependable bartender whose neighborhood bar became the unofficial second home for the Sunshine cab drivers. While others argued, laughed, or fell apart, Tommy was usually the quiet listener behind the counter. Unlike the show's larger-than-life characters, Tommy's strength came from his simplicity. He wasn't at the center of explosive storylines, yet his presence gave the series a sense of warmth and familiarity, providing the perfect backdrop for many of the cast's most memorable conversations. After Taxi, Castronovo continued acting in projects such as The Lord of Discipline, 1983, and Maniac Cop 2, 1990. But he chose not to pursue the unpredictable life of a Hollywood star. Instead, he gradually shifted his focus toward production work and the restaurant business, building a quieter life away from the spotlight without the scandals or controversies that often follow the entertainment industry. As of 2026, at 87 years old, T.J. Castronovo has remained largely out of public view. Though never one of the show's biggest stars, longtime Taxi fans still remember Tommy Jeffries as the steady presence who helped make Sunshine Cab feel like a family. Rhea Perlman played Zena Sherman, the sweet and patient girlfriend of the impossible Louis De Palma when he was 30 years old. Their chaotic relationship felt surprisingly believable, and there was a good reason for that. Long before the cameras started rolling, Perlman and Danny DeVito had already been together since 1971, bringing years of real-life chemistry to every scene they shared. Their natural connection made Louis and Zena's awkward, hilarious romance one of the show's hidden delights. Perlman's own career soon exploded when she became the unforgettable Carla Tortelli on Cheers, earning 4 Emmy Awards and later appearing in films including Matilda and the blockbuster Barbie, 2023. But behind one of Hollywood's most admired marriages came an unexpected twist. After 35 years together, she and DeVito separated in 2017, a decision that stunned fans who had long viewed them as one of the industry's strongest couples. Instead of allowing bitterness to define them, they chose a different path, remaining close friends and continuing to support one another despite living separate lives. Today, Rhea Perlman is 78 years old and still works in film and television. Although her marriage to Danny DeVito came to an emotional turning point, the affection and respect they still share have become one of Hollywood's rare stories of a relationship that endured even after love changed its form. In Taxi, Suzanne Kent was 32 years old when she was cast as Angela Matusa, a confident female cab driver who brought fresh energy to the Sunshine Cab garage in Taxi in 1978. Though her role was brief, she added another memorable personality to the show's colorful ensemble. Before joining Taxi, Kent had sharpened her comedy skills with the legendary improvisational troupe The Groundlings, a training ground for many future Hollywood stars. She later appeared in projects including Pee-wee's Big Adventure, St. Elsewhere, and 30-something. Rather than chasing fame, Kent eventually shifted her focus toward teaching acting and supporting arts education, building a respected career away from the spotlight without becoming part of Hollywood's tabloid culture. Now, Suzanne Kent is 80 years old and continues to live a quiet life. Although her screen appearances were limited, she remains remembered by Taxi fans as one of the many talented performers who helped enrich the world of Sunshine Cab. Susan Kellerman was 35 years old when she appeared in Taxi in 1979 as Greta Gravas, Latka's strong-willed and hilariously overbearing mother. Her scenes with Andy Kaufman added another layer of absurd comedy to one of the sitcom's most beloved storylines. Kellerman's commanding stage presence made her a natural fit for eccentric characters. She won the prestigious Theatre World Award before building a successful career in films such as The Secret of My Success, Beetlejuice, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and In Good Company. Standing nearly 5 feet 11 inches tall, however, she often found herself overlooked for traditional romantic leading roles, with studios believing her height would overshadow many of her male co-stars. Instead, she turned that perceived disadvantage into a strength by becoming one of Hollywood's most memorable character actresses. As of 2026, Susan Kellerman is 82 years old and continues to be remembered for her distinctive work in both film and theater. Though she rarely sought the spotlight, her unforgettable supporting performances have earned her a lasting place among Hollywood's finest character performers. In Taxi, at 41 years old, Louise Lasser played Phyllis Bornstein Consuelos, the ex-wife of Alex Reiger, whose return reopened the emotional wounds left by a marriage destroyed by gambling. Her brief appearance revealed a side of Alex that viewers had never fully seen before. By then, Lasser was already one of television's most celebrated actresses, earning an Emmy nomination for the groundbreaking satire Mary Hartman, and appearing in several early films directed by her former husband, Woody Allen, including Bananas and Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex. But her success was interrupted by a highly publicized scandal in 1976 when she was arrested at a Beverly Hills boutique on suspicion of possessing a small amount of cocaine. Combined with the exhaustion of relentless television production, the controversy contributed to a prolonged emotional breakdown that led her to step away from acting for a time before eventually returning as an acting teacher and occasional performer, including a memorable role in Requiem for a Dream, 2000. Now, at 87 years old, Louise Lasser lives a quiet life away from Hollywood's spotlight. Although her career was marked by both acclaim and controversy, she remains an important figure in American television history for helping redefine what a leading actress could be. Tom Selleck was 33 years old when he made a guest appearance on Taxi in 1978 as Mike Belden. At the time, he was still an actor struggling to break through, moving from one small television role and commercial to another while wondering if Hollywood would ever give him a real chance. Just as his career was about to change forever, Selleck faced one of the greatest what-if moments in movie history. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas chose him to play Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but an ironclad CBS contract for the upcoming Magnum, PY prevented him from accepting the role. Harrison Ford became Indiana Jones instead, while Selleck went on to create his own television legend as Thomas Magnum, earning both an Emmy and a Golden Globe before later starring in Three Men and a Baby, Friends, and Blue Bloods. Off-screen, he weathered a divorce before finding lasting happiness with actress Gilly Mack, though he also made headlines in 2015 after settling a lawsuit over allegations that water had been trucked illegally to his California ranch during a severe drought. In 2026, at 81 years old, Tom Selleck remains one of America's most recognizable television stars. Although he never wore Indiana Jones' famous fedora, his remarkable career has long since proven that he never needed someone else's iconic role to become an icon himself. David Mendenhall portrayed Jason Nardo, the young son of Elaine Nardo, whose brief appearances highlighted the sacrifices she made as a hard-working single mother when he was only 11 years old. Even with only a handful of episodes, he left a memorable impression. During the 1980s, Mendenhall became one of Hollywood's busiest child actors, winning 4 Young Artist Awards and gaining worldwide recognition as Sylvester Stallone's son in Over the Top. He also starred in The Transformers, the movie, and General Hospital. But unlike many child stars whose lives unraveled under the pressure of fame, Mendenhall made a very different choice. As acting opportunities slowed with adulthood, he stepped away from Hollywood, earned a Juris Doctor degree from Southwestern Law School, and built an entirely new career as an attorney instead of chasing fading celebrity. By 2026, David Mendenhall is 55 years old and practices law in California while enjoying a stable private life. His story remains one of the rare Hollywood success stories where a child star found an equally rewarding life after leaving the spotlight behind. So that's The Taxi, then and now, in 2026. Which cast member surprised you the most, and who will always be your favorite driver from the Sunshine Cab Company? Share your memories in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more then and now journeys through television history.